Imagine this, you're standing at your own funeral, hidden behind a curtain, watching your husband from your 15-year marriage walk arm in arm with his mistress. He's dressed in black, but there's no grief on his face, just a smug, barely concealed smirk of relief. The open casket sits center stage with your body inside, flowers everywhere, friends sobbing, and he thinks he's finally free, about to cash in that secret $1 million life insurance policy he took out on you. But in just minutes, everything is about to explode in the most shocking way possible. For the full insane story of how she planned the ultimate revenge and destroyed him in front of everyone, keep watching. You won't believe what happens next. As the curtain fluttered slightly in the drafty funeral home, Emily's heart pounded like a war drum, her eyes locked on Mark through the narrow slit. There he was, her husband from their 15-year marriage, striding in with that woman, Sarah, clinging to his arm like a trophy he'd finally claimed. The room was thick with the scent of lilies and hushed whispers, mourners dabbing at tears with tissues, but Mark's face betrayed nothing but cold calculation, his lips twitching into that infuriating smirk as he glanced at the open casket where a lifelike silicone dummy lay in her place, dressed in the exact sundress she'd worn on their last anniversary trip to Tuscany, the one where he'd been texting Sarah the entire time. He thought it was over, that the tragic accident he'd so carefully orchestrated with tampered brakes on her car had finally paid off, freeing him to collect the $1 million life insurance policy he'd secretly taken out on her just 6 months earlier, and to start a new life with his mistress without the mess of a divorce or alimony. Little did he know, Emily had discovered everything months ago. The steamy affair that had been going on for over 2 years, the late-night hotel bookings charged to his company card, the forged documents, and worst of all, the mechanic's report confirming someone had deliberately cut her brake lines after she'd coincidentally taken the car in for a routine check the week before the accident. She'd played dead literally, faking her death with the help of her old college friend who worked in special effects makeup and a sympathetic doctor willing to falsify records for the right price, all while gathering irrefutable evidence. Hidden cameras in their home capturing Mark celebrating with Sarah the night of the crash, bank statements showing the insurance policy, and even recordings of him bragging to a friend about how one little accident would solve all his problems. Now, as the minister began his eulogy with a trembling voice, saying, "We gather today to celebrate the life of our beloved wife, mother, and friend Emily Thompson," she gripped the small remote in her sweating palm, connected to the projector hidden behind the floral arrangement above the casket, ready to unleash the storm she'd planned for so long. But just as the words "beloved wife and mother" echoed through the speakers, a sudden phone buzz in Mark's pocket shattered the silence. He froze, glancing down with a flicker of annoyance, pulling out his phone to silence it, only to see a text from an unknown number. "Enjoying the show so far?" His face paled slightly as he looked around the room suspiciously, and Emily smiled behind the curtain, knowing this was only the beginning. What would happen when he realized the funeral wasn't the end, but the grand opening of his nightmare?
Mark's thumb hovered over the screen, the words "enjoying the show so far, darling," glowing in cold white light against the dim funeral parlor. The buzz had already drawn a few disapproving glances from the front rows, his mother-in-law's sharp eyes among them, but now the room felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier, as if the lilies themselves were leaning in to listen. Sarah tugged at his sleeve, whispering, "Turn it off, people are looking," but Mark couldn't move. He typed a frantic "Who is this?" with shaking fingers, hit send, and waited. Nothing. No delivery receipt, no typing bubbles, just silence. Behind the curtain, Emily watched every twitch of his face through the slit, her own phone on silent in her other hand, the anonymous texting app still open. She had routed the number through 3 different burners, he would never trace it. The minister, bless his nervous soul, cleared his throat again and pressed on with the eulogy. Emily was a woman of quiet strength, a devoted mother to her 2 beautiful children, a loving wife who, Mark's jaw tightened at the word loving. He shoved the phone back into his pocket, but not before it buzzed a second time. He couldn't resist, he pulled it out again. This time the message was a photo, a close-up of the open casket taken from the exact angle he was standing in right now, timestamped 30 seconds ago. Someone in this room had just taken that picture and sent it to him. His eyes darted wildly, left, right, up toward the balcony, then straight at the casket. For one horrifying second, he thought he saw the dummy's chest rise and fall. Sarah noticed his panic and hissed, "Mark, what the hell is wrong with you?" But he couldn't answer, his throat had gone dry. Emily's smile widened behind the curtain. She had paid a trusted friend in the third row to snap that photo on cue. The minister was building toward the emotional peak now, voice cracking as he read a passage Emily herself had supposedly chosen. "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, perfect timing." Emily's thumb moved to the second button on the remote. The projector hidden in the floral arch above the casket hummed almost imperceptibly to life. Suddenly, the large white wall behind the minister lit up with a soft glow, drawing every head in the room. At first it looked like a gentle slideshow was starting, beautiful photos of Emily with their children, on vacations, smiling at the camera. Mourners sighed with fond remembrance. Mark relaxed a fraction, thinking this was normal funeral protocol. Then the images changed. A grainy still from a hidden bedroom camera appeared, Mark and Sarah tangled in sheets that were unmistakably their marital bed, timestamped 2 months ago. Gasps rippled through the room. The next slide, a scanned insurance policy highlighting the $1 million payout and Mark's signature as beneficiary, dated 6 months earlier. Then an audio clip began to play through the hidden speakers, Mark's own voice, recorded the night of the accident, laughing with Sarah over champagne, one little snip of the brake line and we're set for life, baby. No divorce, no splitting assets, just a tragic widowhood and a fat check. The room erupted. Chairs scraped backward. Emily's mother screamed. Sarah tried to bolt for the side door, but Mark's cousin, planted there on Emily's instructions, blocked her path with a shocked, "You're not going anywhere." Mark stood frozen in the center aisle, face ash white, mouth opening and closing like a fish as every eye turned to him with horror and disgust. Chaos swelled, phones coming out, people shouting, someone yelling for security. Voice cracking as he read a passage Emily herself had supposedly chosen. "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, perfect timing." Emily's thumb moved to the second button on the remote. The projector hidden in the floral arch above the casket hummed almost imperceptibly to life. Suddenly, the large white wall behind the minister lit up with a soft glow, drawing every head in the room. At first it looked like a gentle slideshow was starting, beautiful photos of Emily with their children, on vacations, smiling at the camera. Mourners sighed with fond remembrance. Mark relaxed a fraction, thinking this was normal funeral protocol. Then the images changed. A grainy still from a hidden bedroom camera appeared, Mark and Sarah tangled in sheets that were unmistakably their marital bed, timestamped 2 months ago. Gasps rippled through the room. The next slide, a scanned insurance policy highlighting the $1 million payout and Mark's signature as beneficiary, dated 6 months earlier. Then an audio clip began to play through the hidden speakers, Mark's own voice, recorded the night of the accident, laughing with Sarah over champagne, one little snip of the brake line and we're set for life, baby. No divorce, no splitting assets, just a tragic widowhood and a fat check. The room erupted. Chairs scraped backward. Emily's mother screamed. Sarah tried to bolt for the side door, but Mark's cousin, planted there on Emily's instructions, blocked her path with a shocked, "You're not going anywhere." Mark stood frozen in the center aisle, face ash white, mouth opening and closing like a fish as every eye turned to him with horror and disgust. Chaos swelled, phones coming out, people shouting, someone yelling for security. And in that exact moment, as Mark finally found his voice to stammer, "This is fake, someone hacked," the side door beside the curtain burst open and Emily stepped out alive, very much alive, eyes blazing, remote still in hand, the entire room falling into stunned silence as she said calmly, "Hello, darling. Did you miss me?" But what would Mark do now that the woman he tried to kill was standing 10 feet away, and every damning secret he owned was projected 20 feet high behind her? "Hello, darling. Did you miss me?" The words hung in the air like a guillotine blade, sharp, heavy, and impossible to ignore. Every single person in the funeral parlor turned toward the side door where Emily stood, alive, breathing, cheeks flushed with triumph rather than deathly pallor, the remote still dangling casually from her right hand. The massive projection behind the minister continued cycling through damning evidence on a slow, merciless loop, Mark's voice laughing about the brake lines, Sarah moaning his name in their bed, the insurance policy with its highlighted $1 million payout. But now nobody was looking at the wall. Every eye was fixed on Emily. The room had gone so quiet that the soft mechanical whir of the projector fan sounded like a jet engine. Mark's mouth opened, closed, opened again, no sound came out. His knees buckled slightly, and Sarah had to grab his elbow to keep him upright, her own face twisted in pure terror as she realized the woman she'd helped plot to erase was standing 10 feet away, very much in the flesh. Emily took one slow, deliberate step forward into the main aisle, her black heels clicking against the polished wooden floor like the ticking of a countdown. "Cat got your tongue, Mark?" she asked softly, her voice carrying effortlessly through the hidden microphones she'd installed the night before. "You were always so good with words, late-night promises, whispered lies. All those creative excuses for your business trips." A ripple of murmurs started in the back rows, shock turning into anger as people began piecing together what they'd just seen and heard. Emily's mother, seated in the front pew, let out a choked sob that was half relief, half rage, and stood up on trembling legs. "Emily? Baby, oh God, you're alive." But Emily raised a gentle hand, never taking her eyes off Mark. "I'm okay, Mom. Just stay seated for now. This part isn't over." Mark finally found his voice, hoarse and cracking. This is impossible. You died. I identified the body." The car, he stopped himself too late, realizing what he'd just admitted in front of 200 witnesses. Emily tilted her head, feigning sympathy. "Did you, though? Or did you identify a burned mannequin the fire department pulled from a car you thought was mine?" "Because I wasn't in it, sweetheart. I switched vehicles that morning. Remember how I forgot my phone at home and asked to borrow yours? That little favor saved my life." Sarah tried to back away, but Mark's cousin and Emily's best friend Lisa now stood behind her like silent sentinels, arms crossed. There was nowhere to run. Phones were out everywhere, people recording, live streaming, texting. Emily knew at least 4 major local news stations had reporters in the crowd. She'd tipped them off anonymously days ago. Mark's eyes darted toward the main exit, calculating, but 2 off-duty police officers Emily had hired for security stepped forward to block it casually, badges visible. "Going somewhere?" Emily asked sweetly. "We haven't even gotten to the best part yet." She pressed another button on the remote, and the projector switched to a live feed, body cam footage from the private investigator she'd hired, showing Mark paying a shady mechanic in cash 3 weeks before the crash, clear audio of him saying, "Make it look like an accident. Brakes are easiest." The room exploded again, gasps, curses, someone in the back shouting "murderer." Mark lunged forward suddenly, desperation overriding sense, reaching for Emily as if he could somehow silence her physically. But the officers were faster, they caught his arms, twisting them behind his back with practiced ease. "Mark Thompson, you're being detained pending investigation for attempted murder, insurance fraud, and conspiracy," one of them announced loudly. Sarah screamed as a female officer moved toward her with cuffs ready. Emily stepped closer to Mark, close enough to smell the fierce sweat soaking through his expensive suit. "You thought you'd collect $1 million and ride off into the sunset," she whispered so only he could hear. "But I'm collecting something far more valuable today, your entire future." As the officers began reading him his rights and the room dissolved into pandemonium, Emily turned toward the stunned crowd, raised her voice, and said, "Thank you all for coming to what was supposed to be my funeral. Instead, it's the burial of a marriage built on lies and the birth of my new life." Cameras flashed. Applause started in the back row and spread like wildfire. But just as Emily allowed herself a genuine smile for the first time in months, her phone vibrated in her pocket with a new text from an unknown number. "Impressive show. But he's not the only one with secrets." Who had sent that message, and what buried truth was about to claw its way to the surface next? Emily's triumph lasted exactly 4 seconds, the time it took for her phone to vibrate again in her pocket with that same chilling unknown number. Amid the chaos of flashing cameras, shouted questions from reporters, and Mark's frantic protests as the officers dragged him toward the side exit, this is a setup. She's crazy. She faked everything. Emily slipped her free hand into her coat and pulled out the phone. The screen lit up with a new message, impressive show. But he's not the only one with secrets. Check the last slide. Her blood ran cold. She had personally curated every slide, every audio clip, every damning piece of evidence. There was no last slide she hadn't approved. Yet when she glanced up at the projector wall, still cycling automatically now that the police had paused the arrest long enough for the crowd to process, she saw it. A new image had appeared that she had never seen before. It was a grainy photo of her, taken from behind, sitting in a dimly lit bar 3 months ago, leaning close to a man whose face was turned away from the camera. Across the bottom, white text in bold letters read, "Ask Emily who she was meeting the night she discovered Mark's affair." The room, already electric with shock, shifted again. Heads that had been turned toward Mark now swiveled back to Emily. Whispers rippled like wildfire. What does that mean? Was this all staged? Who's the guy? Emily's mother looked at her with sudden uncertainty. Even Lisa, her best friend who'd helped orchestrate the entire reveal, frowned in confusion. Emily's mind raced, she remembered that night vividly. It had been the first time she'd met the private investigator, a former cop named Daniel Reyes, in a quiet bar to hand over Mark's laptop for forensic cloning. The meeting had been completely professional, arranged through a secure app, paid in cash. But from behind, in low light, it could look compromising. Someone had followed her. Someone had been watching her even as she watched Mark, sensing the shift in the room like a shark smelling blood, stopped struggling against the officers. "See," he shouted, voice raw but suddenly stronger. "She's been planning this for months. She's the one who set everything up, probably even paid someone to tamper with the car to frame me." The crowd murmured louder. A reporter near the front called out, "Mrs. Thompson, care to comment on the photo?" Emily forced her face to stay calm, but inside she was scrambling. She pressed the remote frantically to stop the slideshow, but the projector ignored her. Someone had overridden the signal. The next slide appeared, a bank transfer screenshot showing $15,000 moving from an offshore account to one labeled D. Reyes, with the memo line reading Phase 1, car. It wasn't her account. It wasn't even her bank. But it looked real enough to plant doubt. Sarah, still pinned near the pews, started laughing hysterically. "Oh my God, you're both insane." The officers looked at each other, uncertain now. Attempted murder was clear-cut with the evidence Emily had provided, but this new twist muddied everything. One of them spoke into his radio, "We might need detectives down here sooner than expected." Emily's heart hammered. She had spent months building an airtight case, but in 30 seconds, an unseen enemy had cracked it wide open. Who had access to the projector? Who knew about Daniel? And most importantly, who benefited from turning her perfect revenge into mutual destruction? She scanned the room quickly. Most faces were shocked or confused, but in the very back row, half hidden behind a tall floral arrangement, she caught a glimpse of someone slipping out the emergency exit, a figure in a dark hoodie, face obscured, moving fast. Emily didn't recognize the build, but something about the deliberate calm of the movement sent ice down her spine. This wasn't a random prank. This was calculated. Personal. The doors slammed shut behind the figure just as another text buzzed on her phone. "You took everything from me once. Now it's my turn. See you soon, M." No name. No number trace. But that nickname, M, only one person had ever called her that consistently. A person she hadn't seen or spoken to in 12 years. A person who had every reason to hate both her and Mark. As the police finally resumed dragging Mark away and reporters surged forward with microphones, Emily stood frozen in the aisle, the applause from moments ago replaced by suspicious silence, realizing with growing horror that the funeral might have buried Mark's life, but it had also unearthed a ghost from her own past who was clearly not finished yet. Who was this ghost, and what devastating secret from Emily's history was about to be dragged into the light next? The emergency exit door was still swinging from the hooded figure's escape when Emily's survival instinct kicked in harder than the adrenaline of her grand reveal. Ignoring the reporters shouting questions and the officers calling her name, she pushed through the stunned crowd and bolted after the figure, heels clacking across the marble floor of the funeral home's back hallway. "Emily, wait!" Lisa yelled behind her, but Emily didn't stop. That text, "See you soon, Em," had unlocked a vault in her mind she'd kept sealed for 12 years. Only one person had ever called her Em with that possessive, half-loving, half-bitter tone: Alex Harper, her college boyfriend, the man she'd left at the altar the week before their wedding to run off with Mark instead. She burst through the emergency exit into the cold December air, the parking lot bathed in the orange glow of streetlights. A light snow had started to fall, dusting the rows of cars like funeral confetti. The hooded figure was already 20 yards ahead, moving fast toward a dark SUV parked at the far end. "Alex," she shouted on pure instinct, voice echoing across the empty lot. The figure paused for a split second, just long enough to confirm it, then yanked open the driver's door. Emily sprinted, lungs burning, but the engine roared to life before she could close half the distance. Tires squealed as the SUV peeled out, taillights disappearing down the service road behind the funeral home. She stood there panting, snowflakes melting on her hot cheeks, memorizing the partial plate she'd glimpsed: Illinois, starting with HAR. Her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. This time a photo, an old one, scanned from a physical print, her and Alex on graduation day, arms around each other, both laughing, her engagement ring from him glinting on her finger. Below it, the caption: "You left me with nothing but memories. Now I'm returning the favor." Emily's knees weakened. 12 years ago, she'd made a choice that destroyed Alex. He'd been a struggling med student, she'd been restless, dazzled by Mark's confidence and money. She'd ghosted him days before the wedding, sent his ring back by mail with a short note: "I'm sorry. I can't." Rumors later said he'd dropped out of school, spiraled into debt and depression. She'd never looked back, until now. Back inside the funeral home, chaos still reigned. Mark was in cuffs in the lobby, screaming about lawyers and lawsuits, while Sarah sobbed hysterically in a corner, makeup streaked down her face. Police were now taking statements from everyone, and detectives had arrived to secure the projector and evidence. Lisa rushed up to Emily the moment she re-entered, face pale. "What the hell was that? Who were you chasing?" Emily pulled her aside, voice low. "Someone from my past. Someone who just hijacked the entire show." She showed Lisa the texts and the photo. Lisa's eyes widened. "You think Alex is behind the fake slides? The bank transfer screenshot?" Emily nodded. "He's the only one who calls me Em. And he has motive, against both me and Mark." One of the detectives approached, notepad in hand. "Mrs. Thompson, we need to talk. Those new slides you claim weren't yours. They're convincing enough that we can't process your husband's arrest until we verify the chain of evidence. And that bank transfer, if it's real, it implicates you in insurance fraud too." Emily's stomach dropped. Alex hadn't just planted doubt, he'd planted a bomb that could take her down with Mark. She excused herself to the restroom for a moment to compose herself, locked the door, and immediately called Daniel Reyes, the private investigator. He picked up on the first ring. "Emily, I've been watching the live streams. Holy hell, you did it." "Congratulations, Daniel." "Stop. Someone leaked a photo of our meeting at the bar and faked a bank transfer from me to you for the car tampering. They overrode my projector remotely. I think it's my ex-fiancé, Alex Harper. I need you to find him, now." Daniel's tone shifted to professional urgency. "On it." "But Emily, if he's this sophisticated, remote access, forged financials, he's been planning this as long as you have. Maybe longer." As she hung up, another text arrived. This one was a video file. She pressed play with trembling fingers. It was security footage, from inside their house, dated the night Mark and Sarah celebrated her death. But the camera angle was wrong, it wasn't one of hers. In the video, Mark poured champagne, laughing about the insurance money, but then the footage zoomed in on a third glass on the table, one with fresh lipstick on the rim. A woman's hand reached for it, but the face stayed just off frame. A whispered female voice, not Sarah's, said, "To new beginnings, and to the fool who thought she could leave us both." Emily's blood froze. Alex wasn't working alone. There was another player, someone who knew both her past with Alex and her present with Mark. Someone who had been in her house that night. As the bathroom door rattled with a knock from Lisa calling her name, Emily stared at her reflection in the mirror, realizing with terrifying clarity that today's funeral had exposed two betrayals, not one, and the second one was aimed straight at her heart. Who was the mystery woman in the video, and how deep did her connection to Emily's past really go? Emily splashed cold water on her face in the funeral home restroom, staring at her reflection as if it belonged to a stranger. The woman in the mirror looked composed, hair neatly pinned, makeup flawless despite the chaos, but inside she was unraveling. That whispered female voice on the video, the third champagne glass with fresh lipstick, it didn't belong to Sarah. Sarah's voice was higher, breathier. Emily had heard it enough times on the hidden recordings. This voice had been lower, smoother, almost amused. Familiar in a way that made her skin crawl. She replayed the short clip one more time on silent, zooming in on the hand reaching for the glass. Slender fingers, pale skin, a thin silver ring on the middle finger, simple band, no stone. Emily's breath caught. She knew that ring. She had helped pick it out 15 years ago as a birthday gift for her college roommate, Victoria Lang. Torrey. The girl who had been her maid of honor, her confidant, and Alex Harper's closest friend all through med school. The girl who had cried with Alex when Emily left him at the altar, who had sworn she'd never forgive Emily for breaking his heart. The bathroom door rattled again. "Emily? Detectives are asking for you, now," Lisa called through the wood. Emily dried her hands, slipped the phone away, and stepped out with a practiced calm smile. Coming. But her mind was racing backward in time, back to senior year, Emily, Alex, and Tori, the inseparable trio. Study sessions that turned into wine nights, road trips, secrets shared at 3 a.m. Tori had always been the quiet observer, fiercely loyal to Alex, quietly envious of Emily's effortless charm. When Emily ran off with Mark, Tori had sent one single text, "You'll regret this." Emily had deleted it and never replied. She'd assumed Tori, like Alex, had moved on. Apparently not. In the lobby, Mark was now seated in a plastic chair, hands cuffed in front, flanked by two officers. He looked smaller somehow, suit rumpled, the smugness replaced by raw fear. Sarah had been taken to a separate room for questioning. Reporters hovered like vultures just beyond the police tape at the entrance. The lead detective, a no-nonsense woman named Ramirez, approached Emily with a tablet in hand. "Mrs. Thompson, we've paused processing your husband until we sort out the conflicting evidence. That last batch of slides and the bank transfer, they came from a remote IP masked through multiple servers. Whoever did it knew your system inside out." She paused, studying Emily's face. "You said on record you didn't authorize them. Any idea who might want to sabotage your case?" Emily hesitated only a fraction of a second. "I have a lead. An old college acquaintance, Victoria Lang. She goes by Tori. She had access to my old email years ago, and she hated me for leaving her best friend for Mark." She handed over her phone with the video file already queued. "This was taken inside my house the night of the accident celebration." "That's not the mistress's voice. Listen." Detective Ramirez watched the clip twice, expression hardening. "We'll need your phone for evidence. And we'll bring in Ms. Lang for questioning if we can locate her." She signaled a tech officer over. "Run facial recognition on the partial hand and ring. Cross-reference with known associates of both Thompsons and Alex Harper." "Yeah, I already pulled his name from your earlier statement." As the phone was bagged, Daniel Reyes texted from a new number, "Found Alex. He's living 2 hours north under his mother's maiden name. Registered a dark SUV matching your partial plate this morning. But get this, he's not alone. Utility bills show 2 residents. Female. Name on the lease, V. Lang. Emily closed her eyes for a moment. Tori and Alex. Together. All these years. Plotting. Waiting. The perfect storm of shared resentment, Alex's broken heart, Tori's betrayed friendship, fused into something dark and patient. Lisa pulled her aside near the coat check. The live streams are everywhere. #fake funeral revenge is trending. Half the internet thinks you're a genius, the other half thinks you're as guilty as he is thanks to those slides. You need to get ahead of this. Emily nodded. I know. But first, I need to end it, properly. Detective Ramirez returned. We have a hit on the ring. Victoria Lang, registered nurse, current address matches the one your PI just sent. We're getting warrants. You are not to approach her or Harper. Understood? Emily gave a tight smile. Understood. But as she watched Mark being led into a squad car through the window, his head turned toward her with pure hatred, another text buzzed on Lisa's phone, which Emily had secretly forwarded the unknown number to as backup. This one was a live photo, taken seconds ago from across the street, showing Emily standing in the funeral home window. Caption, careful, M. Next time the casket might be real. T. Emily's hand tightened on Lisa's arm. Tori wasn't just watching from afar anymore. She was here. Close. And whatever plan she and Alex had been nursing for over a decade was far from over. As snow began to fall harder outside and police lights painted the walls red and blue, Emily realized the funeral had only been Act 1, and the real danger was just stepping onto the stage. What would Tori's next move be, and how far would she go to make Emily pay for the past? Emily slipped out of the funeral home's side entrance while Detective Ramirez was distracted coordinating with the arriving crime scene techs. The snow was coming down harder now, thick flakes swirling under the streetlights like a living curtain. Perfect cover for disappearing. Lisa tried to follow, grabbing her coat sleeve with a frantic whisper, You heard the detective, do not approach them. But Emily shook her head firmly. I started this. I need to finish it. Stay here, keep the police busy, tell them I went home to check on the kids. She pressed a quick kiss to Lisa's cheek, then vanished into the storm before her friend could argue further. Her SUV, parked 2 blocks away to avoid recognition, was already running. She'd paid a teenager $50 earlier to start it remotely with a spare fob. The engine growled to life as she slid behind the wheel, tires crunching over fresh snow. Daniel Reyes had texted the exact address an hour ago, a secluded rental cabin 2 hours north, just outside Galena, Illinois, registered under Alex's mother's maiden name. Emily punched it into the GPS, set her phone to do not disturb except for Daniel's number, and pulled onto the highway. The roads were nearly empty this late on December 23rd, everyone already home with family, wrapping last-minute gifts, sipping eggnog. Everyone except her, racing toward a confrontation 15 years in the making. Snow piled quickly on the windshield, wipers thumped in steady rhythm. She turned the heat up full blast, but the chill in her bones wasn't from the weather. Her mind replayed every memory of Tori like unwanted flashbacks. Junior year, Tori staying up all night helping Emily cram for finals, bringing coffee and quiet encouragement. The night Emily got engaged to Alex, Tori hugging her so tight it hurt, whispering, "You two are perfect together." The week Emily left, Tori's single unanswered text, "You'll regret this," followed by radio silence forever. Emily had convinced herself Tori would get over it. People move on. But resentment like that, left to fester for over a decade, doesn't fade. It grows roots. An hour into the drive, Daniel called. She answered on speaker. "Talk to me. I'm 30 minutes behind you," he said, voice tense. State police pinged the SUV's plates. Alex and Tori checked into a grocery store in Galena this afternoon. Bought enough food and wine for a holiday getaway. They have no idea the warrants are coming down yet. Good. Keep the police back until I'm there. I need answers before they're lawyered up in separate rooms. Emily, this is insane. They tried to kill you once already. Mark tried to kill me. We don't know how deep Tori and Alex were in that part yet. Those fake slides, the forged transfer, they wanted to discredit me, not murder me. Different goal. Daniel sighed. Fine. But I'm pulling in right after you. No heroics. She hung up and pressed the accelerator harder. The highway narrowed into winding country roads flanked by dark pine forests. Snow reduced visibility to 20 yards, high beams caught swirling white walls. Her phone, now on the passenger seat, lit up with another text from the unknown number. She glanced over. A photo, the front of her children's elementary school, taken earlier that day, decorated with holiday lights. Caption, beautiful kids. Be a shame if something happened while mommy's away playing detective. Emily's foot slammed the brake instinctively, the SUV fishtailed before she corrected. Rage and terror collided in her chest. The kids were safe, spending Christmas week with her sister in Florida, a trip planned months ago and kept secret from Mark, but the threat was crystal clear. Tori and Alex weren't just seeking revenge on her. They were willing to escalate to the one line Emily would never let them cross. She floored it again, knuckles white on the steering wheel. The GPS announced, destination in 15 miles. 10 miles out, headlights appeared in her rearview mirror, close, fast, gaining. Not Daniel, he was still behind. The vehicle rode her bumper aggressively, high beams blinding. Emily sped up, so did they. She took the next curve too fast, tires sliding, barely holding the road. The pursuing car, a dark pickup this time, nudged her rear fender deliberately, trying to spin her out. She jerked the wheel, regained control, heart pounding. Another text buzzed, pull over, Em. Let's talk. Just you and me. T. Emily's eyes flicked to the glove box where she'd stashed the small pistol she'd bought after discovering Mark's affair, licensed, practiced at the range, never thought she'd need it. She swallowed hard, took the next exit toward the cabin, and watched the pickup follow. The final turnoff was a narrow gravel lane already half buried in snow. Cabin lights glowed faintly ahead, warm, inviting, deadly. The pickup stayed on her tail until the driveway, then veered suddenly into the trees, disappearing. Waiting. Emily killed the headlights 50 yards out, coasted to a stop, and cut the engine. Snow muffled every sound. She grabbed the gun, tucked it into her coat pocket, and stepped out into the freezing night. The cabin door opened slowly, spilling golden light onto the porch. A silhouette stood there, slender, feminine, arms crossed. Took you long enough, Tori called, voice carrying clear through the stillness. Come inside, Em. We have so much to catch up on. Emily took a deep breath, snow crunching under her boots as she started toward the porch, every nerve screaming danger. But she kept walking. Because whatever waited inside, answers, threats, or something far worse, she was done running from her past. As she reached the bottom step, the cabin door swung wider, revealing Alex standing just behind Tori, his face older but unmistakable, eyes burning with 12 years of pain. And in his hand, glinting under the porch light, was a very real gun pointed straight at her chest. What would he say after all this time, and would Emily make it past the threshold alive? Emily stopped at the bottom porch step, snow swirling around her boots, the cold air burning her lungs. 10 feet away, Alex stood framed in the warm glow of the open cabin door, the gun in his right hand steady and pointed directly at her chest. His face was harder than she remembered, cheekbones sharper, eyes sunken with years of something darker than grief, but the voice that came out was eerily calm. Hands where I can see them, Em. Slowly. She raised both arms, palms open, the pistol still heavy in her coat pocket but useless for now. Tori stood just behind him, half in shadow, arms folded, watching with an expression that was almost satisfied. No weapon visible on her, but Emily knew better than to assume she was unarmed. You look good for a dead woman, Tori said, voice smooth and laced with old venom. Come inside. We're not doing this on the porch like animals. Emily took one step up, then another, never breaking eye contact with Alex. You've been busy, she said quietly. Remote hacking, forged bank records, threatening my kids. All because I left you at the altar? Alex's jaw tightened, but he didn't lower the gun. Move. She stepped over the threshold. The cabin smelled of pine, wood smoke, and red wine. A fire crackled in the stone hearth, 2 half-empty glasses sat on the coffee table beside an open bottle. Cozy. Domestic. Like a couple celebrating Christmas Eve early. The door clicked shut behind her, Tori locking it. Alex motioned with the barrel toward the leather armchair facing the fireplace. Sit. Emily sat, hands still raised. So this is what 12 years of resentment looks like. A cabin getaway and a loaded gun. Tori laughed softly, moving to perch on the arm of the sofa. You think this is just about you dumping him? You destroyed him, Emily. He lost his scholarship, dropped out, drowned in debt. I watched my best friend fall apart because you decided Mark's money was shinier than a future with someone who actually loved you. Alex finally spoke again, voice low. You didn't just leave. You vanished. No explanation, no goodbye. Sent my ring back in a padded envelope like it was trash. I waited at that church in my tux for 3 hours. Emily swallowed. I was 22. Scared. Mark swept me off my feet with promises. Promises he never kept, Tori cut in. We know. We watched. Every anniversary post, every family vacation photo. You got the big house, the kids, the perfect life. And he still cheated on you. Poetic, isn't it? Emily's eyes flicked between them. So you waited. All this time. Then helped Mark try to kill me? Alex's hand wavered slightly. No. That part was all him. We only found out after. Tori picked up the story, almost casual. I work ER intake in the city. When they brought in the burned remains from your crash, I saw the file. Knew immediately it wasn't you, dental records didn't match yet, height off by 2 inches. I called Alex. We realized Mark had staged it for the insurance. Alex continued, we decided to let him think it worked. Watched him celebrate with Sarah. Recorded everything. Planned to expose him anonymously, send the evidence to police, watch him rot. But then, Tori said, smiling coldly, we saw you were alive too. Faking it. Planning your little funeral stunt. And we thought, why should you get all the glory? Why should you walk away the hero while we've carried the scars all these years? Emily leaned forward slightly. So you hijacked my reveal. Planted fake evidence to make me look guilty too. Insurance fraud carries the same sentence as attempted murder, Alex said. We figured if Mark went down, you should go with him. Fair's fair. Emily's pulse steadied. She needed time. Daniel was close. And the threats to my children? Tori's smile faltered. Bluff. We'd never. Alex shot her a sharp look. We needed you to feel cornered. Like we did. Silence stretched, broken only by the fire's pop and hiss. Snow battered the windows. Emily took the opening. You have all the evidence on Mark. Real evidence. Give it to the police. Let them arrest him. You get justice. I walk away. We end this tonight. Tori shook her head. Not enough anymore. You both need to lose everything. Alex raised the gun higher. Starting with you coming clean, on camera, about framing Mark with that fake bank transfer. Confess, and maybe we let you leave. Emily's hand inched toward her pocket. And if I refuse? Tori stood, pulling a small revolver from behind her back. 2 guns now. Then the police find your body up here tomorrow. Suicide. Despondent after your revenge plot fell apart. Tragic. Emily's fingers closed around her pistol's grip. You're willing to kill me? Actually pull the trigger? Alex's eyes glistened, anger, pain, something else. I loved you more than anything. And you threw it away. The room felt impossibly small. 3 guns. 15 years of hurt. One wrong move from ending it all. Outside, faint through the storm, came the crunch of tires on snow, headlights sweeping across the windows. Daniel? Police? Or someone else? Alex and Tori both turned toward the sound for a split second. That was all Emily needed. In one fluid motion, she drew her pistol and dove sideways out of the chair as 2 shots exploded simultaneously, wood splintering where her head had been, the fireplace mirror shattering. She rolled behind the sofa, heart thundering, returning fire blindly over the top. The cabin plunged into chaos, shouts, glass breaking, the front door crashing open as heavy boots stormed in. Who had just arrived, savior or new threat, and would Emily make it out of this cabin alive, or would old ghosts finally claim their due? The front door exploded inward with a deafening crash, snow and splintered wood flying as Daniel Reyes stormed in, service pistol raised in a 2-handed grip, badge clipped to his belt glinting under the cabin lights. Drop the weapons. Now. Private investigator, hands in the air or I shoot. Alex and Tori spun toward the intrusion, guns swinging wildly. Emily seized the chaos, fired once from behind the sofa, the bullet grazing Alex's shoulder. He grunted in pain, his shot going wide, shattering a lamp. Tori screamed and fired blindly toward Daniel, who dove sideways behind the kitchen island, returning 2 precise rounds that buried themselves in the log wall inches from her head. Last warning. Daniel roared. Guns down or the next ones don't miss. Tori's eyes darted between Daniel and Emily, panic finally cracking her composure. Alex clutched his bleeding shoulder, gun still up but wavering. You brought backup, Em? He hissed through clenched teeth. Always hedging your bets. Emily rose slowly from cover, her own pistol trained on Tori. I didn't come here to die. Drop it, both of you. It's over. For a heartbeat, the only sounds were the howling wind outside, the crackle of the dying fire, and Alex's labored breathing. Then Tori's revolver clattered to the hardwood floor. Alex hesitated longer, eyes locked on Emily's, pain, betrayal, and something that looked almost like regret flashing across his face, before his gun followed, hitting the ground with a dull thud. Daniel moved fast, kicking both weapons out of reach, cuffing Alex first, who didn't resist, then Tori. You 2 are under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy, kidnapping threat, the works. Warrants are already en route with state police. He glanced at Emily. You okay? She nodded, adrenaline shaking her limbs. Yeah. Just, give me a minute. Daniel stepped outside to radio his location and request immediate backup, leaving the 3 of them in the wrecked living room. Snow blew in through the open door, dusting the floor like ash. Emily lowered her gun finally, legs giving out as she sank onto the sofa. Alex sat heavily on the hearth, pressing his sleeve against the shoulder wound. Tori stood cuffed, staring at the floor. Silence stretched until Emily broke it. Why go this far? You could have just sent the evidence on Mark to the police anonymously. You'd have had your revenge without all this. Tori laughed bitterly, tears starting. Because it wasn't enough. Watching him go to prison while you played the victim-turned-hero on every news channel? No. You both had to fall. Alex's voice was quieter, raw. I didn't want you dead, Em. Not really. The fake slides, the threats, those were to scare you, make you feel cornered like I did. Make you lose everything the way I lost my future. He looked up, eyes wet. But when you walked in tonight, I couldn't pull the trigger. Not on you. Emily felt something crack inside her chest, guilt she'd buried for 15 years. I was young and selfish. I hurt you terribly. I'm sorry, Alex. I am. But trying to destroy me now, threatening my kids, that crossed a line you can't come back from. Tori spat, she doesn't get to apologize and walk away clean. Not after everything. Headlights swept across the windows, 2 state police SUVs pulling up, lights flashing red and blue through the blizzard. Doors slammed. Daniel's voice outside coordinating. Emily stood, holstering her pistol as officers entered to take custody. She looked at Alex one last time. I'll make sure the prosecutors know you didn't shoot to kill tonight. And that the original evidence on Mark came from you. It'll help at sentencing. Alex gave a tired nod. Doesn't change much. Maybe not. But it's something. As troopers led them out into the snow, Tori cursing, Alex silent, Emily stepped onto the porch, watching the cuffs glint under the floodlights. Daniel joined her, handing over a thermos of coffee from his car. You sure you're okay? That was too damn close. She sipped the hot liquid, letting it burn away the cold. I'm alive. My kids are safe. Mark's going down for attempted murder. And the people who hated me enough to try this, they're gone. She exhaled a white cloud into the night. It's over. Daniel glanced at her sideways. Is it? Because the news choppers are already circling the funeral home footage. By morning you'll be the most famous woman in America, hero to some, villain to others. You ready for that life? Emily looked out at the endless white forest, snow still falling thick and silent. I faked my own death once. I can handle fame. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, one last text from the now dead unknown number, forwarded automatically by the carrier before shutdown. It was a single photo, Mark in an interrogation room downtown, head in his hands, Sarah across the table refusing to look at him. Caption, auto-generated by News Alert, Thompson arrested for attempted murder of wife, who dramatically rose from the dead hours ago. Emily smiled, small and fierce, and turned the screen off. The storm was passing. Dawn would come soon. But just as she turned to head back to Daniel's car for the long drive home, her sister called from Florida, voice panicked. Turn on the news. There's something you need to see. It's about Mark, and something he said in interrogation. Emily's stomach dropped all over again. What final secret had Mark been hiding, one that even she, with all her planning, hadn't uncovered? And how would it change everything she thought she'd just won? Emily stood on the snow-covered porch of the cabin, watching the state police vehicles disappear down the winding road, red and blue lights swallowed by the swirling storm. Daniel was inside coordinating the final evidence collection, giving her a moment alone. The night felt suddenly still, the gunfire and shouting already fading into memory. She pulled out her phone with numb fingers and answered her sister's call. Thank God. Are you okay? Where are you? Megan's voice was thick with worry. I'm fine. Up north, wrapping things up. The kids asleep? Yes, tucked in with hot chocolate and a movie. But listen, you need to see this. I'm sending a link. Mark cracked an interrogation. He's talking about something big. The video link arrived seconds later, a local news live stream, timestamped 20 minutes ago. Emily pressed play. A stern anchorwoman spoke over file footage of the funeral home chaos. In a stunning development tonight, Mark Thompson, arrested earlier for the attempted murder of his wife Emily in a faked car crash, has given detectives a full confession. But sources say he's claiming the $1 million life insurance policy wasn't his only motive. Thompson alleges his wife discovered he'd embezzled over $3 million from his company over the past 5 years, and that she threatened to expose him unless he transferred everything into her name. Emily's breath caught. The anchor continued, Thompson claims the brake tampering was meant to look like an accident, but that Emily's death and dramatic funeral reveal were part of her plan to frame him completely, taking the insurance payout, the diverted embezzled funds, and full custody while painting him as the sole villain. Police confirmed they've frozen several offshore accounts linked to Mrs. Thompson containing large unexplained deposits. The screen cut to grainy interrogation room footage, leaked, somehow, of Mark at a metal table, voice steady, she knew about the money. She helped move some of it. Check the Cayman accounts. Her fingerprints are all over this. Emily ended the video, hand shaking. It was a lie. A desperate, brilliant lie. She'd discovered the embezzlement only 2 months ago, hidden spreadsheets on Mark's laptop showing years of siphoned funds. She'd copied the files as leverage, planning to turn them over anonymously after the divorce, letting the company auditors take him down cleanly. She'd never touched a cent. But Mark, cornered and facing life in prison, was flipping the script, claiming she was his partner all along. Daniel stepped out onto the porch, pulling on his coat. "Troopers are done. You ready to head back?" She showed him the video. His face darkened. "He's trying to drag you into the mud with him. Classic abuser move, if I burn, you burn too." "But the offshore accounts?" Emily asked, voice tight. Daniel scrolled through his tablet. "Already on it. Those accounts were opened in your name, 6 weeks ago. Forged signatures, deep fakes for video ID verification. Guess who has the tech skills and the grudge to pull that off?" Emily closed her eyes. "Alex and Tori." "Exactly. They didn't just want doubt at the funeral. They planted a financial trail to make Mark's story believable if he ever talked. Insurance against you winning clean." Snow crunched as another vehicle approached, not police this time, but Lisa's SUV, headlights cutting through the darkness. She'd followed despite orders. Lisa jumped out, running to hug Emily fiercely. "I saw the news. Tell me it's not true." "It's not," Emily said, hugging back. "But proving it, that's the next war." They drove south in convoy through the night, the storm easing as dawn broke pale and pink over the horizon. By the time Emily reached the police station downtown, Detective Ramirez was waiting with a search warrant for her devices and a courteous but firm request to come in for questioning. 12 hours later, after forensic accountants traced the offshore forgeries back to IP addresses linked to Tori's nursing credentials and Alex's old med school email, Mark's accusations collapsed. The embezzlement charges stuck to him alone. Attempted murder charges stuck harder. Sarah flipped immediately, testifying against him for a plea deal. Emily walked free by Christmas Eve afternoon, exhausted but unbroken. The media storm raged for weeks, talk shows, podcasts, book deals offered and declined. Half the world called her a mastermind avenger, the other half whispered she'd gotten away with something. She didn't care. She flew to Florida that night, reunited with her kids on a sunny beach Christmas morning. They tackled her into the sand, laughing, asking why Mommy was on TV. She just held them tighter. Months later, the trials ended, Mark sentenced to 40 years. Alex and Tori each got 15 for conspiracy, fraud, and attempted murder, reduced because they hadn't fired the fatal shots. Emily testified at all three, calm and clear, never flinching. 1 year after the funeral, she stood alone in the same funeral home, rented privately this time, for a small ceremony of her own. No casket. Just a simple plaque she placed on the memorial wall. "In memory of the life I left behind. The lies end here. The truth begins now." She walked out into bright spring sunlight, got into her car, new brakes, triple-checked, and drove toward the future she'd fought for, flawed, complicated, but finally, truly hers. Some ghosts were buried forever. Others, she carried quietly, a reminder that revenge, like love, always comes at a cost. But on that day, with her children waiting at home and a new life unfolding, Emily Thompson knew one thing with absolute certainty. She had paid the price. And she had won.